Hi folks, Alan Hamilton here from Pipers'Persuasion. We have another segment for you this evening, Wednesday the 13th of October 2010, and we are situated for this bit of filming down at McCallum's Bagpipes factory next to Kilmarnock. An interesting place, as you'll see during this interview of one of the most foremost pipers in the world, Willie McCallum. Willie is going to be working hand in hand with McCallum Bagpipes in the future, hence we've picked this location, and we'll finish up talking about that at the end of the interview. However, Willie, as you know, has won just about everything many times in piping, and we are interested, of course, in seeing where his early influences were, how he got to this stage, how much practice he did, the direction of practice, and indeed how he directed his performances towards his such huge success. And the quality of his instrument is paramount also. So sit back and enjoy another segment of Pipers'Persuasion. Good evening, Willie. Well, you've heard the introduction and the famous piper, and unusually I think in this particular instance I'm just to go for the juggler right away. And have you got any, that's a difficult question, why not? Have you got any count or conception of the amount of major prizes that you've won? For instance, starting off, I assume the gold medal at Oban, for instance.
Yeah, I've kind of kept a note of it over the years. I tend to kind of write all these things down, Alan. So yeah, I've got a count going on at the moment. Hopefully it's not finished, but you never know.
If you get any from memory, could you wander through the numbers for us?
Yep. I've won both gold medals, the Oban one and the Inverness one.
So it's our Gershire Gathering Northern Meeting.
Northern Main. After that, the kind of major ones would be the Senior Piebroch at their Gershire Gathering, which I've won 3 times. The former winners March to Spain Reel at their Gershire Gathering, which I've won 5 times. The former winners March to Spain Reel at the Northern Meeting 3 times, and the Glenfiddich Championship I've won that 8 times.
That's a very difficult one too, isn't it?
It's a difficult one in terms of you have to have 2 performances, so it's an overall prize between the March to Spain Reel and the Piebroch.
For the viewers that are maybe not acquainted with Glenfiddich, we'll come back to theirs in a second, but we're on that anyway. What are the 2 performances, for instance?
Well, the Piebroch is the first event that you take part in. So
how many tunes?
You have to submit 6 tunes of your own choice for that.
Okay, yeah.
And then the second event,
Castle, of course.
Yeah. The second event is a March to Spain Reel, which is played twice through. So each tune is played twice, and you submit 6 tunes of your own choice.
So that's 6 marches, 6 displays, 6 reels.
Yeah. And
the judges let you know when you have to play tunes.
You find out the night before what your tunes are, and you don't really have much time to prepare them. But it gives you a wee chance to settle with them. The problem is, occasionally, if you're not careful, you can start thinking about them that night, on the Friday night, and the Piebroch's still in your head all night, so you don't get too much sleep. But
aye, and you're not just as settled as what you should be the next day, especially if you're early on.
Exactly.
Do you get a draw that previous night also?
No, the draw's made first thing on the Saturday morning.
So you're not getting all your own way.
You don't get it all your own way. Sometimes it'd be better knowing the draw the night before and then the tunes first thing in the morning. But I'm not sure. Pipers are never happy. So whatever you do for them.
It's worked out for you a few times, eh?
It has worked
8
out.
times.
Yeah, 8 times.
My goodness.
So, yeah.
And harping back again to the Gershire Gathering, you won the gold medal. Can you remember the year and the tune?
I do. The gold medal was 1995. and the tune was Willie McCallum's Lament.
Nice
So
tune,
yeah, it was a tune I'd done really well with.
Do you still play it?
Still play it now and again. Yes. Sometimes you move on from tunes that you did well with, and I think that's probably just because you think you're overplaying it, and you know, and it's something it's a tune I'm going to go back to.
Yeah.
Over the next couple of years, I think.
Okay. And the Northern Meeting, the same question, the year and the tune?
The year for Northern Meeting gold medal was 1989.
That's quite a bit earlier, right?
It's a wee while ago now. Yeah, it took me, it was 6 years between winning the 2 gold medals. So.
And how many times did you hit the crossbar?
A couple of times at either. But the Northern Meeting was a first big one that I won.
So that was 89 and the tune again?
It was the Battle of Aldern #2 setting.
Aye, that's a good tune as well.
Yeah, I was quite happy. I mean, both performances for the gold medal, I felt quite happy with after I'd played. But the gold medal I always found a really nervous competition. I did things in the gold medal competitions over the years that I'd never done anywhere else. And I think it's still the same today when I hear gold medal competitions at the Northern Meeting and their Gaelsir gathering. There's pipers there that do the strangest things that they would never do any other time. You know, like go off the tune in the last line, or you know, just go off the tune, a tune that they probably know inside
backwards,
out. Yeah. So I mean, there was a few events like that. So it was. It was. These were 2 of the times I managed to harness everything in the one day, and again, you never think ahead and go, well, I think I've got a good chance of winning. You just have to go and do the business and then hope after that. The
other thing that just occurs to me, I wonder if you'd any comment about the location, the environment, Eden Court Theatre. Is that intimidating or is it relaxing? Has it got a good ambience for piping, and possibly some folk find a difficulty there? How do you feel about a comment on that?
When I won the gold medal at the Eden Court, it wasn't actually in the main auditorium.
Okay.
Of all places, it was on what they call, I think, the Stalls Foyer, which is up the stairs at the back of the main auditorium. And I always liked my pipes in there. I always liked the sound I got in there.
That's the most important.
It is, and the acoustic was good. I always felt that when you went from the tuning room in there, you could hear your pipes very clearly. I've always found that the auditorium can be a wee bit more intimidating because you go in and it's a very big arena. Most of the tuning rooms are quite small. So you come in, it takes you 2 minutes for your ear to get adjusted to the size of the place. Yeah.
And you're fighting the lights all the time.
Well, of course, there's the lights, which I think it's well documented. I'm not a big fan of, but they're a necessary evil, I suppose. And you just have to kind of try and harness yourself to get ready to start. But you've got that extra thing. Sometimes the temperature can be cooler as well. So you've got all these things in your head.
Are they particularly good or bad at Oban and Inverness for temperatures and tuning rooms? And
I think quite often the temperatures are different, and sometimes and I think the size of the rooms are different. So you've always got that extra wee battle.
Is there anything that should be suggested to them about that in your experience?
I'm not sure. I think probably just giving you another minute or so would help to settle your nerves.
4 minutes, well, 3 minutes on the lights.
or whatever it would be. Because it's always a gamble. You know, you only get 2 shots a year at playing at the Northern Meeting and their Gaelsir gathering, and you put a lot of preparation into it. And for your performance to be sometimes almost like a gamble about when you start, I'm not sure that it's really necessary, because I mean you would always want the pipers to have their best preparation before they played, and you know you're a lot of the competitions, it's the best pipers in the world. And if it takes them another minute, it takes them another minute. Yeah, I think if I was a judge, I would rather hear a piper playing with his pipes absolutely spot on.
Well, you want a good competition, don't you?
You do, and you want to hear the pipers at their best. It shouldn't. I feel sometimes that it kind of catches out some of the pipers, and I don't think that's an ideal way of running a competition.
So that would be an adequate argument as against running a competition, which I'm a wee bit of an anarchist in early days. I said to myself, why don't solo pipers do what pipe bands do? Just go out onto a line, no tuning, just put the pipes up and start playing.
Well, it's not one I would agree with, I have to say, Alan. But for
the reasons stated.
I think that's very, very true. And I think if the pipe bands might be a wee bit different in that you're hearing an overall sound between maybe 15, 20, 22 pipers.
Yeah.
You know, so any one of these pipers, their drones might not be absolutely spot on at the start, but they might all be the same.
Can carry that.
Yeah, I think so it averages out a wee bit more probably. You know, to have to do that, you might get away with it. You might blow up, and you can maybe blow to suit for 2 or 3 minutes. But it's not great for.
Moving on from these prizes in Scotland, which are well documented and probably understood, I'd like to touch, while we're talking about prizes, briefly on North America.
Yep.
What have you done over there, North America?
Done some competing there. The competition I've played mostly at would be the Dan Reed Memorial Competition in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yep, and that competition is very much a different type of competition.
Where is it held? What time of year?
It's held in May every year, and it's held in one of the big hotels in San Francisco. Really nice, big area. It's usually like a ballroom or something like that. Yep. Very good acoustically, and it's a competition which I've always enjoyed playing, and quite a lot of preparation involved in it, because unlike a lot of contests, you don't always get to put in your own tunes. There is an actual formal tune list, which is a great challenge, and it can seem too big a challenge sometimes. But for example, one year you may have to pick from a list of light music of maybe 3 marches, 3 suspes, 3 reels, and then you add 3 of your own. And then on the day you'll have to play 2 marches, 2 suspes and reels, that kind of format.
Yeah.
There'd also be a Pibroch competition, which would be fully a set list, and you would maybe submit 4 or 6 from.
Right.
And there's also a jig and hornpipe competition, and I say that deliberately, jig and hornpipe, because it's played in that order.
Oh, that's
played
unusual.
Twice through.
Aye.
And the last event in the competition at the moment is a Pibroch Urler. So that it kind of covers all of the bases in terms of the light music in Pibroch. And just to add to that is that it's a recital format, so you actually get up and you play the whole lot in one performance. So you play your ground of the Pibroch. It depends how fast you play or the length of tunes, but probably competition time you're about nearly 30 minutes of music, maybe up there for about 40 minutes.
And that's 40 minutes of pure concentration.
It is, yeah.
Worrying about the bagpipe.
Yep.
And if the bagpipe gets wet or goes off or whatever, you're not bothered, because you've still got the rest of the
Yep. You are allowed breaks if you need to tweak something like a reed or dry something out. So it's not completely not understanding of what your needs are. It's definitely designed to make you play well. And I actually quite enjoy that format myself, although it's quite grueling.
So many times have you won that?
I've won that 7 times.
My goodness.
So it's been a good competition for me. I've always
terrific.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
And of course, a big turnout at Piper's there, world's best, and
Yeah.
so
yeah.
it's a good test for you.
Oh yes, I mean the other names that have won it over the years are a kind of who's who of likes of Jack Lee, Roddy McLeod, Stuart Liddell, Bill Livingston, and I hope I'm not missing anyone out. But that's the kind of names.
Maybe not.
Not sure if Alistair is. He's won individual events at it,
Aye.
and so is Gordon Walker. So
Okay.
that's the kind of names that have been involved in the competition. But
And what about the rest of North America? There's a Metro Cup, isn't there?
Played in the Metro Cup in New York the last few years. Again, it's a wee bit different, which is good. There's a Pipers'Persuasion competition and then a medley competition.
Aye.
Which is a bit of a challenge because it's not like the kind of medleys you might play in a pipe band, because you've no one else to cling on to, and you've no harmonies or anything like that. So it's a medley of tunes that you try to put together that's got some decent musical effect.
Whereabouts they play that in New York? Is that a hotel again?
It's in a hotel in New Jersey, and at the moment I think that's been the venue for a number of years. Yeah. In the early days of the contest, I'm not sure exactly where it was
you done anything in Canada?
No, I haven't.
Or have you played any other parts of the world apart from America, Scotland, England, of course, and London?
Well, there's one other competition which takes place every year in the States, USA, in Newark, Delaware, which is the United States Piping Foundation, and they have an annual professional competition each year. So I played there a couple of times, and that's usually a pretty good competition.
Again, successful?
Won once and second overall the other time. So good. That's been a good contest.
Have you been across at L'Oreal?
I've been there a few times. I've played in what used to be called the McCallum Trophy. I think it's a McCrimmon Trophy now, and I was second overall there a couple of times, and I think third as well. So I always enjoyed that. Great atmosphere, and again
just
a
tell
challenge.
The people what that involves, that competition.
Yeah, the McCallum competition is based on a concept of inviting pipers from Scotland, from Ireland, and from Brittany. So each player has to play in each of the country's disciplines. So usually for the Scottish section it would be a march to Spain reel, and for the Irish section it would be a medley of Irish tunes, and for the Breton section it would be also a medley. Usually would consist of a march, an air, and then a dance tune in the Breton idiom. That's been a long-standing competition, and it was a great idea to start it up, and it's obviously shown how popular it is, because a lot of the good players want to go out and take part in that. The twice I was runner-up in that competition, Gordon Duncan had won the competition these years.
And of course the Gordon Duncan Memorial Competition run in Scotland around about the Celtic Connections and January runs in a similar format.
In exactly the same format, which is a tribute to Gordon and how successful he was in that competition. So I think very appropriate.
It's more or less made for Gordon, wasn't it?
Well, I think it might have been.
He fitted into that style.
He did, and he had a good knowledge of the Breton music in particular, because he had a lot of visits there with the pipe band and on a solo basis.
Terrific. I'm going to drag you away from all that now, perhaps touch it later on again. And the viewer must be interested in where it all began. So where did you learn bagpipes, and tell us a bit about that.
Okay, well I was born in Campbelltown, so it's a great piping town. There's been a lot of great pipers come out of Campbelltown, and it's very much a family tradition in the McCallums to be pipers. So although it was probably expected I would be a piper, there was actually no real argument from me, because when I was very, very young, I used to go along to all the pipe band events. My father was secretary of the Cownloch Pipe Band. It just so happened in that band that the pipe major was my uncle Ronald. And Hugh McCallum also played in that band at one time.
Another uncle.
Another uncle. So you can see there was certainly huge piping dynasty there, I suppose you would call it, because again,
and who taught you?
Going back generations.
Aye, who taught you?
Well, when I started, I was desperate to learn, so my father started me, and basically took me through.
Was your father much a player in his time?
He didn't play much. He kind of gave up when he was quite a young man. He didn't really play after, well, probably his teens, because because of work. He left school fairly early and started working.
Right.
So he didn't get a chance to really play as much as he would have liked.
He started you off in the practice chanter? Started
me off in the chanter, got me onto the scale, doublings, throwing the D. And then after I had 2 or 3 of the normal simple tunes. I started about 9.
Okay.
I was about 9.
Right.
Started me in a few of the simple tunes, got me to that stage, and then said, right, your Uncle Ronald's taking you now from here on in. So that was great. When I started, I kind of had an idea of how the music was written out and that kind of thing, but I didn't really read the music that well at that stage. I hadn't really got into that side of it. So most of it was, I was taught by my dad by ear as well. I was taught all these movements. I was shown what they looked like on the staff, but really it was mostly, getting the sound of the movements and the feel.
And then Ronnie, of course, what position did he have at that particular time, piping-wise?
Well, Ronnie was a really well-known piper in Argyll, and he won quite a lot of solo prizes, but he tended to sort of stick to the pipe band side of things. So he was a long time pipe major of the Cownloch Pipe Band. The pipe sergeant of the band at that time was a guy called Dougie McShannon, who is Ronnie McShannon's father.
Right.
So that Ronnie was in the band as well at one time. So Ronnie tended to pursue the pipe band side of it, and the band were very successful in the 60s and 70s. 3 and 2, and I think they did get up to grade 1, but I can't remember exactly what they did.
But basically, as a good second grade band.
Yep, and so it was great to have a teacher. Ronnie was absolutely meticulous with everything he did. And 2 things really stick in my mind. One was that he was very, very strict on technique, and very good at teaching technique and making sure that you didn't skimp on the practice on technique, and also that you played the movements to suit the tune. You didn't play every doubling identical. So if you were playing a suspect or a march or a reel, you would play a doubling, for example, differently.
Or closed, depending on the flow
depending
of the music.
on the type of music and the rhythm. So that was one thing that was very evident. The other thing that he always insisted on was that when you practiced totally concentrated. So if you were practicing in the house, his big thing was you don't practice unless you're concentrating on what you're doing. So you couldn't just get the pipes out and play for half an hour and not concentrating. You had to be totally focused on what you were doing, and that was always the thing that if we were doing a lesson and he thought I wasn't concentrating, then he would say, well, there's no point in doing that. You're better playing for 20 minutes focused than playing for an hour not focused. So it was always quality of practice rather than quantity.
So have you stuck to that?
That's been one of the big things that I've never forgotten is the practice quality is the most important thing. And
what sort of hours of practice were you putting in when you were young,
well,
as comparison to now? Maybe now?
Well, probably would have played my pipes for maybe half an hour every day, kind of thing. Difficult to remember exactly, and then I would do whatever I had to do in the practice chanter as well. So when Ronnie started teaching me, he also, the other thing was that he taught me tunes by ear to start with. So I can always remember the first tune I learned from him was Redford Cottage, and no music. And
never heard that tune now.
It's never really heard at all, and fantastic tune, and it was very popular then, I think. But I just had to learn it bar by bar from him. And
you'll need to tell us what kind of tune it was. 6/8, 2/4, what was it?
It's 6/8 march, 4-parted 6/8 march.
Okay,
so
right.
It was the first sort of reasonably big tune I'd learned. All the stuff before then was all 2-parted tunes.
Aye, right.
So that was
Where
the
did
next
Ronnie
one.
get his stuff from? Where did he get his knowledge from?
He, I think, was taught by an old fella called Willie Thompson, and possibly, and I don't know for definite whether he got any other lessons from the likes of John Mackenzie in Campbelltown, but I think they were of an age, so possibly not. But Willie Thompson was a piper from Aberdeenshire, I think he was, who was a pupil of John MacDonald of Inverness.
Right.
And he came down to the Kintyre area and worked for the McNeil family down there. And they had, you've heard the tune, the McNeils of Ugadale. Well, Willie Thompson worked for them, and I think also the McNeils of Losset House, which is near Machrihanish. And Willie was responsible for teaching quite a number of people, and I think I'm right in saying that John Wilson's father, Willie, was possibly influenced by Willie Thompson. And John Mackenzie of Campbelltown, the great composer and great light music player and pibroch player. And Ronald McCallum, who is a cousin of my father's.
A cousin of your father.
So this is a different Ronald McCallum to the one that taught me.
So let's not get mixed up. There's Ronnie McCallum, the pipe major, and there's Ronnie McCallum, the cousin of your father's. And what did that Ronnie do?
Well, that Ronnie was known as more as a piper to the Duke of Argyll. Won the 2 gold medals in the early 50s, and he also won the former winners' March to Spain Rail. Fantastic player. Was pipe major of the 8th Argylls for a long time as well.
Did you ever play for him, or did you anything to do with him at all in your piping? Yeah,
I did. When I was small, I would occasionally go up to Inverary with my father.
Play in the castle?
Didn't play in the castle ever. I played in Ronald's house, which was one of the estate houses called the Maltlands, and that was somewhere where I used to get some lessons for Ronald, and I was really impressed by him. He had a great way of teaching, and very gentle, and he was even as I remember him as an older man, he was a great player. He could play pibroch and effortlessly.
Where did he get that from?
Well, he was
sources?
He was taught by Willie Thompson as well, as far as I know.
So Thompson had quite an influence in the whole area.
He did. So there was already piping in Kintyre, but he had a big influence in it.
And Uncle Hugh.
Yep.
Tell us about Uncle Hugh.
Well, he didn't live in Campbelltown at the time when I was growing up and learning. He was living in Bridge of Allen, and then moved to Dunblane. So I didn't get up to see Hugh that often, but when I did, I would go up for maybe a week at a time and get some absolutely fantastic tuition there as well. And it was Hugh that started me in pibroch. So I started on pibroch with Hugh. I didn't get any pibroch from Ronald. And so in some ways there's a division between Ronald gave me and what Hugh gave me, although I did like music with Hugh as well.
Yeah.
It was him that introduced me to Pibroch, and I can still remember.
What age would that be about?
Probably about 10 and a bit, because I wasn't
a great disparity time-wise.
No, there's not.
Aye.
There's not. And I was actually playing Pibroch with Hugh before I was on the pipes. So I had full Pibroch learned and played before I got the pipes.
When did you really get into the pipes then?
Probably about 10 and a half, something like that, or nearly 11.
What was your first instrument?
Well, I actually borrowed a set of pipes for a few months from... it was a man that played in the Cownloch Pipe Band, and he had a spare set of pipes. We didn't have one in the house at that time, and my dad's plan was to get me a good set of pipes.
Right.
And for really, really sad reasons, the next set of pipes I played were the set that Ronald had.
What Ronald is this?
This is Ronald that taught me from scratch.
The pipe major Ronald?
Yes.
Right.
And when he was... It was just around the time when I was just starting on the pipes that he had a heart attack. And was ill for a while, but he recovered from that, but decided for health reasons he wasn't going to play the pipes again.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what age Ronald would have been then, but so he decided that I was to get the pipes.
What kind of pipes?
Well, it's the pipes I play today to compete. It's a set of, I think they're like 1890s Hendersons, full silver mounted.
Aye.
And these were bought for Ronald by my grandfather.
Yeah.
He was Willie as well, just to confuse things further, but Willie bought them for Ronald, and he so he played them until he gave up, and now I'm playing them. And when he bought the pipes, he actually bought them from Willie Thompson, who we've already mentioned.
Yes.
And Willie told my grandfather that the pipes had won every medal in Scotland, including the gold medals. Now, I know that Willie didn't win the gold medals.
So the instrument's done it, not you.
The instrument. Well, that's another story. So they had won the gold medals before, I was told. So it's only a few years ago that I found out that possibly they were possibly played by George Allen to win the gold medals. And that's something I've still to kind of fully research, but apparently George Allen used to borrow these pipes to compete sometimes. Well, so him and Willie Thompson were good friends. As
great
far as
pedigree.
So the pipes have, as you say, maybe they play themselves and it's nothing to do with me.
Before I leave the pipes, I'm going to come back to that set of pipes in a wee second or two, but I said before I leave the ancestry. We mentioned just before on camera, so to speak, about a great grandfather. You lead me through that one.
Yes, it was only a few years ago that I became aware, and it was some research that was done between my Uncle Hugh and Bridget Mackenzie, who's a well-known researcher and author. She's done a number of different books, including one on Pipers of Argyll. And she traced back that my great-great-great-great-grandfather was a guy called John McAllister, who won the prize pipe in 1782 at the Falkirk Tryst. So
that was the first piping competition, wasn't it?
It was the first competition. I think it was the second year it ran. I think the first one was 1781. Okay. And John McAllister won in 1782. So I had no idea when I was reading stuff in Angus Mackay's book and stuff like that when I was younger that this man was related to me in such a direct way. It's amazing, and even coming down to obviously one of the females of the McAllister family married into the McCallums at one stage. Even I think one generation back from me, the name McAllister is still used as a middle name, so I didn't know that at all. So it's grateful to know that, and I had absolutely no idea that pedigree goes back so far.
Didn't link them up with Shotts and Dykehead.
Well, you never know, but possibly they're somewhere back.
There, eh?
So they're a piping dynasty there in the Shotts band.
We're talking about your bagpipe a second or two ago. I think it'd be useful for people to know what you did with your pipe originally in terms of reeds and a bag, and what you've done with it latterly. Has there been much of a change in the preparation of the instrument? So starting earlier on, when you got the pipes, was it a sheepskin bag?
It was. When I first got my set of pipes, when I started playing about 11, every bag was sheepskin, and so at that time, so it was a sheepskin bag, cane reeds.
Where'd you get them?
Well, the bag, I'm not sure exactly where the bag came from in these days.
The reeds, really?
I'm trying to think, but I know that the reeds, the reeds came from George Lumsden, and he was a great supplier of drone reeds in these days, and still is. But that was where my Uncle Ronald got his reeds from.
Tell people where Mr. Lumsden.
Well, he's George Lumsden is a man from Edinburgh, and was a leading light in the Edinburgh City Police pipe band. And judged up till very recently, correct? He did, that's right. Yep. And was a very good solo player as well. And I know that there was one year he got second in the gold medal. So his credentials were second to none. And add to that all the world championships he won with the Edinburgh Police pipe band. Going well at one point. So he made great drone reeds, still does, I'm sure. So that was the drone reeds. And the chanter, what chanter did you play originally? The chanter I played was an old Hardy from the mid-60s, and I've still got it today. I've got a couple of them in the house, but I've never looked at it for I don't know what reason. I've just moved on to other things. But so what chanters did you play as you progressed through the 70s, 80s? Well, when I started playing in the open piping, which would have been 1979, that was the first year I played in the open. I was still playing the Hardy chanter, and did pretty well with it in that first couple of years. In fact, I think I competed with that up until about 1984, and then I messed about with a Warmack plastic chanter for about a bit of a year, and then I tried a MacLeod chanter that was made by Galanders and MacLeod. Ian MacLeod's. Yep, in Forfar. So Ian was heavily involved in that business. So I played a couple of the Galanders, and I can remember the first year I played, and first year I got prizes in the gold medal in Oban and Inverness, which would have been 1986. Played the MacLeod chanter that year. I also won the marches that year with the MacLeod chanter, and to my great surprise, qualified for the Glenfiddich for being second in the gold medal at the Northern meeting and third at Argyll winning the marches. So played at the Glenfiddich that year with the MacLeod chanter. And how did that go? It went okay, because I got a prize in the Piebroch, so that was again a big surprise, because I think at that stage I was quite overawed by the occasion. So I managed to play well enough to get, I think it was 5th in the Piebroch that year. It's a tough competition. Well, yeah, and I went up to play in the light music. I'd never played twice through before anywhere, so that was a big shock to the system, and I don't think I quite passed the test, but I got to the end of it, and it was a big experience for me. And again, it was just one at that. You're always learning in piping, and I think that was a big learning curve for me. So did you ever, what did you do in the future to prepare yourself for an event like that? I think probably two things. One was I kind of tried to learn from the mistakes I would make, and it took me 2 or 3 years to get used to playing at competitions of that stature, whether it was the former winners March to Spain Real or the Glenfiddich. I just tried to kind of analyse what wasn't working and what was working, and then I was kind of one of these people who would go in and listen to other players and see what they were doing, listen to them, and take on board advice and ask people. And I always remember Pipe Major Angus MacDonald telling me that John McClellan told him that he always practised March to Space and Reels 3 times through. If there was a big event coming up where it was twice through, John would practice 3 times through. And Angus did that himself. And Angus had great success in the big March to Space and Reels. So I decided that if I wasn't doing that, then I wasn't fully prepared. So I gave that a go, and I found I got a bit stronger, and my concentration was a bit better. So that really stood me in good stead. So I think it's all about analysing the mistakes you make, trying to learn from them, and trying to also use advice from people who've been there and done it.
It's really strong practice as well, and methodical practice.
Absolutely.
And how much time would you put in a practice chanter for a big competition like that, and how much on pipes?
Most of it's
wise, I'm talking.
I would say 95% of it's on the pipes.
Right. You know the tunes, so it's just a matter of getting yourself controlling everything, the whole event. I think
I've always tried to practice as much in the pipes, because you're a piper more than a practice chanter player. So, and the benefits of playing on the pipes are that you're building up your stamina, you're blowing, you're improving your blowing, you're also keeping your instrument where it should be in terms of the setup. You're learning about your instrument by playing for as long as you can, and you're learning to regulate moisture. And
how did you do that? Or do it?
Well, initial stages when I was still playing the sheepskin bag, I had just to regulate how long I played and make sure that, and checked my pipes that they weren't getting wet.
Seasoning?
Oh, you had to go through all of that.
What kind?
It was always the airtight seasoning these days.
Okay.
And I found though that the more I played, I was finding over time that my pipes were getting more condensation in them, and in the drones where the moist air was condensing in the inside of my drones, and it was meaning that I couldn't play as long as I wanted to, and I always had the risk that my pipes would get wet, go out of tune, and quite, 2 or 3 times that could be quite costly, because you either had to nurse your pipes and not play as long as you wanted before you went on, or you played long enough or a wee bit longer, and then you suffered maybe at the end of a tune. Yeah. So there was a point at which I decided I was going to try something else, and went to a moisture control system maybe about 10 years ago.
Still on the sheepskin, or had you moved to Gore-Tex?
Well, the whole thing was to move from sheepskin to something else. So it was moved from that to a Ross canister system. Right. And I thought I would give that a go and experiment with that. And I was quite lucky. Within a couple of weeks of moving to that, I was really settled with it. And
any difference in the chanter sound?
I found a wee bit at first, but I just had to try and work with it and regulate the moisture going to the chanter enough so that it wasn't too changed. It is a wee bit of different sound, but
any loss of volume experience, or not particularly?
Didn't experience a loss of volume. I think it was just it was a different experience in terms of how much moisture was going to the chanter reed from the bag, and I think through time I was getting better at managing that, just just by doing that. The one thing that was really evident was that you could get your drones rock solid, and you know, you could have them going in tune for half an hour easily.
They would stay there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just lock on. And
Yeah, once they were settled, that was once the chanter reed had settled on its pitch, then the drones wouldn't alter. You didn't even need to worry about your drones getting wet. You could just play and play and play.
And you were quite happy with the quality of the sound from the chanter.
Definitely, definitely.
Aye.
But again, it was about setting the chanter up properly, the way that suited the system.
Aye.
So you had to play maybe different reeds, different type of chanter reed, or a chanter reed that was maybe had different qualities to it.
So by that time, when you changed to the Gore-Tex, had you changed your pipe chanter?
Well, by that time I was on to another chanter, because within a year of playing at the Glenfiddich with the McLeod chanter, the following year I changed over to an ale chanter, which I then played for nearly 20 years, same chanter. So it saw the sheepskin bag, and then saw the change to the Ross bag.
Have you moved away from Gore-Tex? Are you still playing Gore-Tex?
I'm now playing a different type of bag, which is a hybrid bag, which has got it's the outer part of it is a hide, and the inner part of it is a sort of nylon, which is very like the Ross nylon bag. So I've been playing that for a couple of years, but I still keep the moisture control to keep my drones dry.
Excellent.
which is the Ross system.
Did you ever move away from cane into plastic?
Again, yes, I've been doing that for some time.
Yeah.
When the first kind of synthetic reeds came out in the late 90s, I tried them, and I decided to move to tenors, which were synthetic. And I've played that kind of synthetic tenor right to this day, and that's the easy drone reeds. In the bass drone, I've experimented with 2 or 3 different types of reeds. So I've had different types of synthetic reeds. I've had cane bass reeds, and it just depends which one's going the best at the time. So I've tried 3 or 4 different synthetic reeds, and again, it's about getting the proper tonal quality from these reeds. It's not always about just having them steady, because sometimes you can have a steady pipe and you're not getting the harmonics out of it. So for me, it's always been about trying to get a setup with synthetic reeds that sounds as if it's very natural.
Like everybody else, you dabbled with bands and the Scottish Power, wasn't it?
Well, before that, actually, I played with the Babcock Renfrew pipe band in the 80s. The pipe major of that band was Jimmy Henderson from Dunoon.
Right.
Well-known player and great teacher, and he was a friend of the family. He was a friend of Ronald's for a long, long time. This is my uncle who first taught me.
Yep.
And Jim knew I wasn't playing in a pipe band, and I wasn't particularly really playing that much at the time. I was playing a wee bit solos, but it tended to be seasonal. So he encouraged me to come to the band. He had just taken over. Ian McLeod had just left the band, and Jim had been asked to take over. So I joined that band, and that was a great experience, because grade 1 was quite a hard proving ground, I felt, for me at that time, and I learned quite a lot about my setup and my pipes, and I certainly think that having done that made my pipes better for the solos as well, and that continued. My improvement. I think my improvement in my instrument continued probably every year that I played in the band.
How long were you with them?
Played 4 years in the Renfrew band.
Did you move into another band after that?
I did. Jim left the band at the end of 1987, and I decided that it kind of run its course, and I actually wanted to moved to another band at that time, which was full of a lot of friends, and that was what was it then, the B. Cal pipe band under Harry McNulty.
Okay.
So it's quite funny because at the end of that season, Ronnie McShannon and Roddy McLeod had been trying to encourage me to come to the band, and they'd said to Harry, you know, Willie's trying to get into the band, and Harry said, well, what's he won? And they said, well, last week he won the marches at Oban and the Spain Reel in the one day. He said, oh well, that might be okay then. That's fine. So that was kind of my audition, you know.
Aye.
So it was Harry being the comedian he is. It was just the way he thought about things. But yeah, that was a band packed full of really excellent pipers at that time.
Aye.
And actually, there was another piper who moved at the same time as me from the band, was Peter Hunt, who'd been in the Renfrew band for a long time. So he and I joined the B-Cal the same night. So it was, and we've been friends for a long time. And he ended up being pipe sergeant of the Scottish Power Band, which the B-Cal actually became.
Aye, so it is converted.
Yeah. So in 1989, the B-Cal band became the Power of Scotland, and then a couple of years after that, was renamed again Scottish Power, and still exists under that name.
Yeah.
When I played under two other pipe majors at Scottish Power, that was Hugh McInnes, who was pipe major of the band for 2 or 3 years.
Great march player.
Absolutely great player. Learned a lot from Hugh at the band. We never managed to win any of the big championships, but he had an immaculate bagpipe.
Was a fiend for practice, Hugh.
He was.
Oh.
He was.
Told me he practiced the same march 6 times in a row.
Aye.
If he made a mistake 3rd time round, that was he started at #1 again.
Well, I think I'm doing well with 3. So, so Hugh was a pipe major, and then after that, Roddy McLeod took over, and I played in the band under Roddy for a few years after that. And then it came to a time where I kind of fell out of love a wee bit with playing in the band. I think I was finding that it was taking up too much of my time, and there was one August that I don't think I was a night in the house, and I just had got enough of it, and so left the band in 1996. Having been lucky because we won a few championships, including Cowell and the Scottish under Harry. So it was a great experience, and I kind of left the band with a heavy heart because it was something I still wanted to be involved in many ways. But the time constraints, I wanted to devote more of my time to my solo piping.
And that solo piping has evolved over the years with the many prizes that we've discussed, and you had a great interest in the last few years in developing a pipe chanter with Stuart McCallum of McCallum Bagpipes.
Yeah.
Could you give us a quick mention on that one?
Yes, it came about over a telephone call with Kenny McLeod. And I think Stuart and Kenny had been discussing, bringing out a solo chanter, and I was quite taken by surprise by the phone call, but quite excited by the idea. And as we resolved, Kenny and I resolved that we would discuss it a couple of months later, once the season was finished. So once we started talking about it, I was quite enthusiastic about the whole idea, and it was an area of piping I'd never really been involved in. I wouldn't have hardly known. I tended to just play the instrument and not worry too much about how it got there. The
development.
Yeah, and so it took the best part of a couple of years to develop the chanter that's on the go just now, and You know, there was.
So what's the name of it for the people?
It's called the McCallum Solo Chanter, but it's sometimes known as MC square or MCC squared because of the link up between my name McCallum and the McCallum Bagpipes name. So it's kind of become known as the MCC squared chanter, which is great because it's an identifiable name for a product, and it was a great development, and actually it kind of took so long, I think, because we wanted to make sure it was a good product before it came out, and
you've used it yourself to effect?
Absolutely, since the day we agreed that it was kind of ready. The agreement was with Stuart and I that I wasn't going to play it anywhere until I was happy that I could play it in a competition. And I always remember on the Thursday before I first played it anywhere, we got to a chanter that I liked, and I said to Stuart, if you can put a soul on that, a silver soul on that, I'll play it on Saturday. So did that because I was really happy with the way it was going, and went up and competed at the Lochaber Gathering on the Saturday. Didn't tell anyone. In fact, it was a Friday night. I didn't tell anyone I was going to play it, and I was hoping that with the soul on it, nobody would really notice. So I wanted to prove to myself that it was good enough. That was the thing. So played and won the marches and the suspension and reels on the Friday night, and then thought, well, that was a good start for it, and played the next day. I won the Piebroch and the hornpipe and jig. So it was kind of no going back from there, and it couldn't actually. If you couldn't have scripted that better, because I don't think I'd ever won a competition where I'd won all 4 events.
Played that chanter since?
Played that design of chanter since. I changed over. I've actually got 2 chanters that I play. I played that chanter the following month at Oban, got second in the former winners, second in the senior Piebroch. So I've played it at the Glenfiddich and won the March to Spain Reel that year, and that was 2007. So I played it the following year, I think, and then 2009 I just changed the chant. I didn't change any of the measurements on it. I'm just playing a different piece of wood, that's all, and I just like it a wee bit better. And sometimes the piece of wood can be different.
Yeah.
Regardless of how it's bored out or
it's almost a living
old.
thing,
It is, and they've all got slightly different tonal properties. So I've still got the original one that I competed with, and that's my backup. And
did they make it in plastic?
Make it in plastic as well, and
it's fairly successful with a couple of
it's
people.
been good. There's been a lot of prizes won with the chanter. And,
what about McCallum pipes?
Well, that's a story probably to be continued as things stand. I've actually got a really nice silver and ivory set of McCallums which I've used for recitals and competed with at the Metro Cup a couple of years ago and won the Metro Cup with. And they were just a standard McCallum bagpipes model which everyone can buy. I should add that the chanter's exactly the same. Anyone who buys the MCC squared chanter is buying exactly the same chanter as I play. I think people think that you play something different, but I couldn't do that. So and so that set I've maybe tinkered about with a wee bit, and as things stand, I'm now going to be a wee bit more heavily involved with McCallum bagpipes on helping to develop the drones just a wee bit. They're a good set at the moment, and we're just hoping to do a few wee tweaks here and there to see if we can make an even better instrument, I think.
Well, there's nothing so good it can't be improved upon.
Well, that's very true.
Willie, that's very interesting hearing how you are taking part latterly in the development of the Great Highland Bagpipe. And that is simply because I understand your time's a wee bit freed up now. You've just left the accountant's position in Strathclyde University, and you're now devoting more, in fact full-time, your life to piping. And of course it's not just developing a bagpipe, you're going to be teaching more on a professional basis. Could you tell us more about that, please?
Yes, I've been teaching for longer than I thought, actually, because the first piping school I ever did was through in Edinburgh, and that must be nearly 20 years ago. So I didn't think I'd been doing some teaching for so long, and I've always been involved in doing a summer school or something every year, but I haven't done a lot of that really. Over the last few years I've taken on a number of individual pupils, and that's worked out pretty well. That's been something that's just kind of added to itself every year. So I've been lucky enough, a lot of the pupils have done pretty well. Had some really good prizes, and are definitely on the way up. One of them, Glenn Brown, won the gold medal last year. So it's something that I've always kind of liked to do, and found quite satisfying.
How do you get your lesson across to them? What sort of format, roughly?
Well,
don't want to give away trade secrets here.
No, I think in general it'd be more than the trying to kind of impart what my views on how they should play. I quite like to allow them to have a wee bit of themselves in it, because I think that's very important that you do that, so that you don't. I wouldn't like someone to completely mimic what I did.
So you're not imposing yourself on them.
You're trying to give them something of a framework to work within, and impart some of the style that you like to bring to it. You're never going to do that completely, because if a piper or any musician needs to put a bit of themselves into it, and they will inevitably, whatever you were to teach them. So it's good that they have a bit of their own personality in their music, but what you can do is guide them on things like technique, instrument, and generally in phrasing and control and technique, all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's important that they have that. You can impart some of the knowledge about the things that you've learned from different teachers or from listening to different players, that kind of thing. So you try to wrap up all of that and try and put that across to them. But I try to let them do as much as they can themselves.
Okay.
And
what
that
about
the
format? I understand you, maybe you've done this already, you've moved into the internet for some pupils.
Yes.
Teaching on the internet.
That's quite a popular medium now in teaching bagpipes, and to do a lesson with someone who's an 8-hour time difference away, for example, is actually no problem now, and as long as you don't have to teach at 4 in the morning. But it's a good medium. It works very well for talking.
You use Skype all the time?
I use Skype most of the time. I've tried with other programs, but Skype is the most consistent one. And for speech and practice chanter, it's very, very good most of the time. So I've been kind of piloting this from my point of view anyway for the last couple of years, and it's something that I'll be able to do more and more now that I've got some time freed up. Right. It works very well, and I know a lot of other people who have students on Skype and that kind of thing, and they're very successful with it. So it's something that makes the world a smaller place, and it works well. There's still no substitute for the one-to-one lesson, because sometimes you have a wee delay on the Skype thing, so you can't conduct somebody through a tune just the same way you could do in the same room. But you tend to adapt by using other things like recordings and just talking through it, and then trying to maybe get a one-to-one lesson now and again when the time permits.
That's excellent.
But but that seems to work quite well, and it's something. It's quite strange though, talking into a screen. It's but you have to use some signals sometimes when they're playing, so they don't have to stop all the time, and that's something you have to develop.
There's problems about bagpipes on either side, I suppose.
Sometimes just the sheer volume of the bagpipes coming across Skype can distort a wee bit.
Yeah.
So I've mucked about a wee bit with that, and sometimes it works with just the chanter and no drones, but probably the best way is just to do most of it on the practice chanter.
Of course, the great thing about the thing is, if you're really annoyed with the pupil, you can just pull the plug on them with the on-off switch, you see. Say, good night.
Well, I've been lucky so far, it hasn't happened. It's the first time for everything.
Willie, thanks very much for this interview. Very, very interesting. I've learned a lot myself. I've picked up the heritage, your bagpipe, your preparation, your winning ways with the bagpipe. And I'm quite sure there's quite a few tips that are buried in there for the student of the future. Also, we've heard about how you're going to develop, and we watch that with great interest in the future as we do your teaching practices. And we can only wish you all the best, and thanks very much, and good night.
Thank you, Alan.